Oh, hello, my fellow Spurs fans. How are we all doing? Let me take this off screen. We are going to be doing our regular Tuesday panel show. I'm joined by Rain Man, who you might recognize from plenty of the fan shows. We have Soren, who's become a bit of a regular in the last few weeks, thanks to his contributions, as well as, of course, Sam, who's always on these Tuesday panel shows. We're going to be chatting a bit about some of the news that had come out, mostly from Alistair Gold and Football London, about Tottenham's transfer plans, or really lack thereof, from here on out until the season starts. By the way, everybody, if you didn't know, we're, I think, less than 2 weeks away from the actual Premier League season getting started. Only one more friendly left, and then our Super Cup against PSG. And then the whole madness and roller coasters get underway. We're going to be talking about, apparently, Spurs signing another center back, even though Alistair Gold at one point said, don't believe any rumors of Spurs signing a center back. Only weeks later, he's now put out in an article saying Spurs are apparently interested in one. So why is that? What's happened? Or has Thomas Frank maybe not been satisfied with the millions of center backs that he did have to pick from, at least at the beginning of this preseason? Also, with the injury to James Maddison, they did say that Spurs are supposed to be looking at a central attacking midfielder, but why has it taken so long, especially after Morgan Gibbs-White? That whole saga didn't go as planned, but surely they should be looking at it. So again, and maybe a bit of pressure on Johan Lange, at least from me, and some of the question marks about why are we not getting to move on, or what's the holdup by this stage. Ben Davies, Sam's favorite player, we'll be talking about him. He's found a way yet again to earn the love and the attention of the manager, and has stuck around. And apparently Thomas Frank believes we don't even need another fullback, which again absolutely shocks me. So let me know whether we think that's genius or a big mistake, please, in the chat. And then we have some other little bits and pieces to discuss as well, if there's time for it. Thanks to everybody joining us. Thanks to the panel for being here with me. Good to see Stevie Frazier, Paolo Maratti, Noel, Iceman. Good to see you, Iceman. Hopefully everything's all right with you, Ricky. Shemi Tan as well. Appreciate you, Shem. Hopefully everything's all right with you today. And then Dermatron saying, big up, guys. It's disgusting that we've left it like this. Well, we'll get on to that in just a second here, Dermatron. And we discussed, I think, last week with Soren for a while about, what is kind of the issue with Johan Lange. Is he maybe a guy that is making similar mistakes to what he did last summer, where he left some of the bigger money signings, more important signings, to the very, very end of the window? I'm starting to question this guy's ability to get those important signings over the line, but we'll get into it here. We're going to start off first with some of the news that's come out from Alistair Gold, that Spurs are confident that they will have the funds to carry out their transfer plans this summer. That's according to Football London in an article today, with Frank prioritizing both the central attacking playmaker as well as another center back with a good level of experience to bolster the Danes' options in the center back. I'm going to go to you first on this one, Rain Man, because I'm curious, because you brought up to me about, the millions of loans that Spurs are doing at the minute, but I felt like we already had a lot of talented center backs to pick from. But apparently, according to Alistair Gold and Football London, Spurs are interested in bringing in an experienced center back. That was the words that Alistair Gold chose. And also just something on that, too, just to add to the question. Alistair Gold, I'm not kidding, only a couple of weeks ago was saying, don't believe any of the rumors that Spurs are going to be signing a center back because they have already so many on the books. So what do you make of that? That apparently they think, the Thomas Frank is looking at bringing another center back.
So hello, everybody. I'm looking at my analysis of the squad here on my other screen, and it's a bit of a mess all over the place, really. And if I focus at centre back and look at our fit options, Dragassin's not available, Takai not available, Phillips out on loan to Stoke, Dorrington out on loan to Aberdeen. That leaves us with Romero, Van der Ven, Danso, and got to count him as a centre back, right? Davies. Have I missed anybody?
I guess Vuskovic is also going to be loaned out, supposedly.
Absolutely, yeah. Vuskovic is also on the loan list. Everyone who's a regular on this channel will know that I'm on a bit of a mission about loans, and this is one of those reasons. These players who we're sending out on loan, whilst maybe players who we wouldn't necessarily want to play in the first team, at the very least, they're players who can play in those positions, who've played in those positions for a significant number of years. Okay, maybe it's only in the academy, but they've still done it. They've played at that level and can fill when we have a problem. And you know, this is Tottenham Hotspur. If we're not expecting there to be injuries all over our squad, and certainly that's where we are right now, then we're mad.
No.
Right? So we're loaning out. So I look at our currently available centre backs, and assuming that they're sending Busquets out on loan, which I think is absolutely bonkers, absolutely mind-bendingly bonkers.
Yeah.
Then you can see why they would be thinking we need another centre back. Personally, I think the solution is don't send Busquets out on loan. Personally,
so many center backs to pick from, Rain Man, that are talented, right? But he seems to perhaps not believe in all of them. You know, Dorrington, Phillips, Takai, I guess, is forced to stay because of an injury at the minute, but Buskovich as well. Like, it's a lot of center backs that he could have picked from, but he doesn't seem maybe satisfied with all of them.
So who knows?
Yeah.
You know, it's we're throwing darts with blindfolds on at the moment because none of it seems to make any sense to me. I don't get sending Buskovich out on loan. He's all of us have seen him play, and I don't care how old he is. I don't care how old any of these people or any of these young men are. I think they all need to be tested, and he's played a few games and he's looked decent.
Yeah.
He's also been tested out on loan. So
compared to Mikey Moore, he almost has like the Wayne Rooney like build for someone as young as him. He does. I mean, he's technically 18, but he doesn't necessarily look like your average 18-year-old. He's, I think, the tallest even of the center backs, you know, that we have. That's how big the kid is. Soren, you were shaking your head, I think, in agreement with what Rain Man was saying there about Buskovich, right? I mean, what do you make of the fact that he could be headed out on loan, and also Spurs are apparently signing a center back when, I'm not kidding, Alistair Gold was saying, don't believe these Esteve rumors, you know, with the guy at Burnley, because Spurs have so many center backs on the books, they won't sign one. But now apparently we are.
Well, the only two things I wonder with it all is, one is Van der Ven going to be playing more left back rather than, say, central defender? And two, are we preparing for a future without Romero? I mean, I don't get the Buskovich one because I, from what I've seen, he looks ready. You know, and as a backup centre back, I don't really see the problem if he's going to be playing alongside, you know, Romero or a Danso or a Van der Ven, then he's in good company. The only way I see us signing a centre back if it's going to be a left-footed one. If it's a right-footed one, it makes no sense. But I mean, before we go on, I know it wasn't part of the plan tonight, and I know he'll be watching. So I just want to say thank you to Sonny. 10 years as an absolute legend. He's left this club, and I'm not going to lie, there was a tear or two when he said his goodbyes. It was a bit emotional. But I just think what a player, what a man, and he's going to be missed. It's not going to hit until we see that first team sheet and there's no Son. But
yeah,
I just want to say thank
to
you.
do that video with Dave.
Yeah,
you know,
I just want
until
to
he
say
gets
thank
back.
you to him because he has been one of my favourite players for the last 10 years. Is infectious. His smile, his demeanour, his attitude. It's just what a football player should be. But yeah, back to the topic. Sorry about that.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. I think centre. I mean, unless Frank's seen something in him that he's not quite happy or he doesn't think he's ready, then you know that's the only thing I can think. But let's hope he goes somewhere where he's going to play regular and it gets him up to speed for possibly playing in the Premiership. But it's bewildering. I think there are other positions in the team that are far more what's the word? Far more of a priority to get some players in than centre back. I mean, like I say, unless it's to push Van de Ven to the left, or we're going to play a back three and we need a couple more backups just in case, then yeah, I mean, look, it's Tottenham, as it's already been said, lads. It's Tottenham. You know, we don't expect an easy time. Nothing makes sense. We'll probably get a player for every position apart from a number 10 and a number 9. So, you know, it's Tottenham. What can you say?
I think even this comment, is probably to Rain Man's frustration is we're loaning out a center back to just buy another center back, And the part that I'm just really surprised by, Sam, is Alistair Gold is kind of the one guy that a lot of people do pay attention to and do kind of take his word for it. The guy, I'm not kidding, was making jokes about ITKs, and other journalists putting links out to center backs, just saying, don't believe it because Spurs have so many on the books. But I guess 2 or 3 weeks later, now he's suggesting that that's one of the positions that Thomas Frank wants to sign a very experienced player in. Luka Vuskovic, we know, isn't experienced, but he's looked really good. What do you make of the fact that apparently we will be signing another center back?
Well, first of all, I know that you hate Ali Gold. Maybe hate's a strong word, but I know
it's definitely strong, but I do get annoyed.
But I know that people can get things wrong, but he does make a point of always saying that he doesn't post stuff unless he has it backed up at least by 2 different sources. So if that was the information coming out of the club at the time, then maybe in that period of time, Thomas Frank has looked at the fact that we had like 9 choices for centre back and realized actually we maybe only have 3 that I actually seriously trust. And I think that when you're looking at the fact that Frank has a very sort of malleable system, he can play a 4, he can play a 3, he can play a 5. Having more centre backs that he can depend on, I think, does kind of make sense. Although I agree with you guys, I don't really understand how it's the most priority, how it's the priority signing. Whereas, we don't have a 10 fit at the club at the moment. We're letting Donnelly go. We're going to let Devine go probably, and a couple other players that can play in that position aren't really experienced in that position. I don't really want to be going into the Super Cup with Wilson Odobert playing 10, for example.
Yeah.
And again with the left back, I know your original question was about Ben Davies.
We'll get on to the left back, but yeah, take us to the number 10 bit. Why is that taking so long? That's my follow-up question about that one, because it's from the same quote. Alistair Gold is saying we are looking at bringing in a creative midfielder as well as a center back very soon. But I mean, we tried to sign Morgan Gibbs-White. That didn't end up coming through. What's taking so long, to sign this creative midfielder?
Yeah, I mean, I saw someone breaking down. I know it doesn't work quite like this, but I saw someone breaking down the money that supposedly is available. There's still supposedly 50 million from the ENIC injection of 150. We get 100 million for qualifying for the next phase of the Champions League. And we supposedly had this 60 million, whether or not that was factored into one of those previous 2. But there's clearly money there that we can spend. And for the time being, it does look like we're sitting on our hands. Although I'm one of these fans that's kind of like, whether you love or loathe Johan Lang, he clearly works very differently to what we've been used to, or how football transfers have kind of moved in the last 5 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's an absolute anomaly when you see things like Luke de Jong just being announced directly to the fans at Porto. So for me, I feel like it's not quite time to pull what little hair I have out. I think that give another week, then I'll be starting to hit the panic buttons, because we'll be 1 week away from the final or whatever, and then
we'll be in the Premier League season a week from
now.
Yeah,
exactly. We'll basically be in the season, and at that point, we've wasted yet another transfer window and pre-season where our players can't come in and hit the ground because they haven't trained to the right system yet. I know that they should be fit if they've been doing their own pre-seasons, but it is odd. And like, I think that with the whole centre backs thing, I feel like it's very easy to hype up young players. Like, don't get me wrong, after that Reading game, I was coming around like, oh my God, like Vuskovic looks like an absolute bad boy. You know, he's going to be unbelievable. But then we haven't seen him really play since, right? So we only really have that, unless you've been watching him previously, which I haven't. There's not really a lot to judge him on, and I feel like we kind of have to trust Thomas Frank's, understanding of how he's training and whether he feels like he'd be a good fit for the Premier League now, given that Frank has 4 years of Premier League experience and a lot more time as a manager in general. So I do think we need a centre back. As I said, it's not a priority for me, but I can understand why they want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, Vuskovic's case, he played against Wickham, but you're right. Technically, since then, we actually haven't seen him at all. Rainman, how do you feel about the number 10? It has been labeled as an important position for us to sign. We did technically sign Morgan Gibbs-White. Obviously, famously, infamously, it didn't happen. Why is it taking so long? Do you think it's a Johan Lange problem, or am I getting maybe a little too frustrated too soon?
I think the frustration for me in that area is, if that was a position that was important to us, I've said on other shows that my real beef with the way that whole transfer sort of transpired was the fact that Spurs didn't push for it. Was the fact that Spurs didn't go, right, you've got 3 days. If you haven't got 3 days, you're going to go on to we're going to go on to our next target. Where's our next target? If it was such an important position that we were going to expend energy and money and effort to get Morgan Gibbs-White, well, there has to be, you'd expect there to be a list, right? We need a player who can play dynamic 8, and step up into the 10 when we're in that phase of play, So we didn't get Morgan Gibbs-White, so we go to number 2 on the list. Where's the number 2 on the list? We don't see it.
Yeah.
The transfer policy, the transfer, the way that things are working out, just feels a bit sort of chaotic. Obviously, we went and got Paulinho, which we all love. I think almost universally, we think this is great. But he's not the same as Morgan Gibbs-White.
Yeah.
So he wasn't the number 2 on that list. It was the number whatever over on this list. So
just a quick follow-up. I mean, Sam was suggesting that we're just not used to how Johan Lange operates, which is kind of in the dark. Not a whole lot, gets really leaked out. If anything, he should be a plumber with how, few leaks, seem to actually get through to us. But do you think that's the case? What Sam was suggesting is that we're just in the dark, and so we're just kind of just speculating? Or are you kind of in my boat where you're actually just questioning his ability to actually get the important signings over the line?
I love the fact that we don't get, a gazillion leaks. I love it, actually. I don't need to see things on X constantly for a week before it happens. I don't need that. But what I do need to see is stuff happening, and I don't need all of the chatter. But what I do need to see is getting stuff done. So we went for Morgan Gibbs-White. Didn't happen. It's been 2 weeks, week and a half now.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the 3rd week now.
we should have already moved on. We should have already moved on to the next target. And now we're scrambling. Now we're in a position where all clubs know we're desperate, and everybody talks about the deadline day being the milestone. It isn't. For me, there's multiple milestones during the transfer window. the first day it opens and you saw Man City and Liverpool were getting stuff done on that, in the first day, first week. Before pre-season starts, that's the next milestone when you want all of your players in. Before the season starts, the transfer deadline day isn't even really a milestone. It's just a bookend,
Right.
way out there. And I agree, we seem to be working to the transfer deadline day, but we should have been working to one of these prior milestones.
I feel like if you're going to work towards the transfer deadline day, then that's when you kind of leave the less important signings for the squad, the ones that you just sort of fill out, maybe in various positions that you don't think are as important. My suspicion or my fear is that Johan Lange is going to do something he did last season where he kind of got the, I don't know, periphery squad player signings done very quickly, but then seemed to take his time or leave it very late for some of the important ones. We knew we needed to sign a big name striker. We signed Solanke, but we only signed him like days before the first actual game of the Premier League season, if I remember correctly, too. He was in Japan while we were in preseason in Japan. He was on vacation, and we still apparently wanted to wait an extra month or two till we actually signed him. Wilson Odebear had already played like 2 games or a game already for Burnley by the time that we actually signed him, and he was signed, I think, like the day of our first game against Leicester City in that last, and he was an important player. We all were saying we need to sign another winger. We need to sign another winger. And it was one that we kind of paid a decent fee for, but we also knew was still going to be very raw and needed a lot of developing. I just question this guy's ability to get important signings over the line before we actually begin the Premier League season, because it seems like this big important signings, you want to give them that preseason, like someone mentioned before. You want to give them that time to hit the ground running and embed into the squad. But Soren, I'll come to you on it. I mean, am I again just being, too frustrated, or can you see where Sam was suggesting, this is just how Lange operates. We're just going to always be in the dark and, the questions will arise, or you kind of in my camp where you just question his ability to actually get these deals over the line?
Let me fire a question back to you.
Okay.
Name all the players that we've approached this window to come and play for Tottenham.
Well, we don't know really, right? It's
exactly.
Anytime.
And that's my point, that we don't know whether we've approached anybody and they've refused to come or they're not interested. I mean, if you listen to some people out there that think they're in the know, with every player that's signed for another team has been one of our targets. We don't know who our targets are. We all keep going on about Eze. Eze is not coming, and we don't know who Johan Lange or Paratici or whoever it is at the moment. We don't know who they're approaching. We don't know who they've tried to sign. We don't know what agents have been approached. So, when we sit here and say, "Oh, Lange's not good enough at doing his job," well, maybe the players don't want to come and play for Tottenham Hotspur. This is a question that, everybody out there thinks that every single player that we approach wants to come and play for us. And the reality is a lot of them don't. And, when we say, why haven't we signed Eze, or why haven't we signed him, or why haven't we signed this player, or, well, maybe they've just either don't want to come or the demands are just too stupid. But you see, this is it. I mean, if you look at the players that we've signed recently, and I'm not just talking about this window, I'm talking about the last few, most of them have come out of nowhere. And, it suddenly gets spouted about on the day or the night before that we actually sign them, that all of us know we're about to sign this player. I mean, the fact of the matter is with Paulinho, that was done 2 or 3 days before, if not more, than what it was announced. We were just waiting for Bayern Munich. Everyone in Germany knew that he was coming to Tottenham, but we didn't know. We all speculated he was. Well, that's because, there's no leaks anymore, and I'm exactly the same as Red. I think it's brilliant. I think it's, I watch these people that are supposedly telling us, that they know people within the club and this player is coming and we're interested in this player. And as soon as they tell me that, I just think, right, he's not coming, he's not coming, he's not coming, and he's not coming, because it's a load of bollocks. And until it's actually kind of suddenly gets, oh, he's about to sign or he's coming for his medical, then it's just pie in the sky to me. But look, I mean, we talk about Morgan Gibbs-White. I think everybody in the fan base was frustrated with that one. But at that time, we weren't desperate. It's only since Maddison went off injured that all of a sudden it is a massive priority now, because we haven't got that creative player. And look, if we go out and sign somebody and it's not the right player, what's going to happen? Oh, we panicked and we bought the first one available. Well, maybe we're actually doing some due diligence this time and getting the right player. You know, I mean, we talk about Rodrigo. I mean, I know he's not necessarily a number 10 out and out. I think he's more of a striker.
More of a winger.
But,
yeah.
But, you know, if we're about to put £88 million down on him, then maybe there's a plan in place. And how often have we said as Spurs fans, we don't know what the plan of the club is? The club seem to have some idea of what they think the plan is. We haven't got a clue. And what's to say, you know, that for once they've got a list of players and they're making sure that we don't just sign anybody, we sign the ones they're actually after. But look, until the window shuts, and I know, like we've said, sometimes the last day or the day before it's too late, but until the window shuts, then I still believe we'll get the right player in. Maybe it's going to be Grealish, maybe it's not, maybe it'll be somebody else, but until that player's signed, I'm not listening to what everybody keeps telling us. It will be what it will be.
I do agree with you on the ITKs point, because I think the last summer, a lot of the ITKs were royally exposed because there were plenty of rumors, this and that, Conor Gallagher, none of them actually happened. And the players that we did sign, there was no rumors at all at any point of them actually coming through. And then they were just all of a sudden announced, like it was back in the old days where you just opened the paper one day and all of a sudden you've realized, you know, you've signed a player. But it did expose, I think, a lot of the ITKs that the leaks clearly have been closed by Langer or by Levy or maybe both.
The thing is, Eze is going to be another one of those. Is it Damian or whatever they called him? Yeah, we'll still be talking of Eze coming. You know, some of our fan base have got this thing about Eze, and nobody else is after him really, other than Arsenal, and even they've backed out of it. So that kind of tells you something. And look, if Eze was coming, he would have come last year, not this year. He would already be a Tottenham player. But I don't know. I just get the feeling that the Eze thing is more pie in the sky, and it's because the fan base want him. The managers don't seem to want him. The owners don't want him. There is more to Eze than meets the eye. And I don't know. It's not just we can't do the deal. There is something there that's teams don't want him. So
I don't know if I have much of an issue of us being in the dark. Like, it's not like we're entitled to have to know every single bit of business that Spurs are doing or anything like that. But I am more the camp of just fearing what happened last summer window, where we were all kind of saying, like, don't panic, don't panic, don't panic. And then I think all felt like we didn't actually do enough in the last summer window. And then the ones that were actually the very important signings that we need to get over the line, we waited until kind of the last days, really, you know, and that also seemed like maybe panic or just an inability to get those important signings done sooner rather than later, like some of the other clubs do. And even at the minute, you know, I'm seeing rumors that Manchester United are about to sign Shesko for like 90 million euros. They've revamped their whole forward line before we've even brought in that, you know, Gibbs-White type player or someone like that. That's supposedly a very important summer signing for us this summer. So it just, to me, screams of, I mean, Johan Lange seems to take a very, very long time in order for these deals to get done. That's just my take on things. But unless anyone else has anything to add to this, we can move on to the Ben Davies situation. Thomas Frank had this to say. Frank, on whether Spurs are signing another left back, he said, yeah, I think so. We have enough fullbacks at the minute because right now we have Ben and Spence. I thought Jed was very good against Arsenal and did very well against Saka. And I think Ben Davies is a very important player. I think his leadership qualities, his character, and the way he understands the bigger picture everyone has got an ego, but his ego is not too big, and that's good. So you understand how much you need to help the team and the younger players. He understands when it's better for the club, all the actions. So as a player that can speak up and push a bit, and they like him, he's a good guy. It makes sense what he says, and he does it in a good way. It's respect and respect for all the players. Some win respect by being a top player, and Ben is still, by the way, a very good player. So when you do the other things as well, if you think you win that more respect, I mean, I'm going to go to Sam on this one because it's his favorite person in the world, Ben Davies. How has Ben Davies managed yet again to stay at Spurs? Sonny is leaving, yet Ben Davies is staying. And do you believe that he still has a future as a left back? Because I felt like his future as a left back, Sam, was over 3 or 4 seasons ago, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it is any secret that I admire Ben Davies. Whether that's, you know, him as a player or just him as a guy in general, you know, you choose. I don't really mind. I'm quite surprised that he isn't following Son out the door, to be honest. I thought, you know, they've been here together for a decade. Ben Davies, 11 years or whatever it is now, because I think he came the season before Sonny. And I just thought, you know, he's won he's won a trophy. There's not really much more that like he needs to do. You know, he's imparted probably enough wisdom. So I was thinking, you know, either I've seen a lot of Wrexham links, or now with Snoop Dogg co-owning Swansea, I thought maybe like a Ben Davies back to Swansea, because I'm not sure kind of what the relation with Swansea and Wrexham is, if there's any sort of rivalry there. I doubt it, but so I thought that maybe that, you know, going back to Wales would be a nice way for Ben to like see out the twilight of his career and then come back to Spurs when he retires to start his coaching journey, which seems to kind of happen for a lot of players, not just Spurs players. I mean, look at Yaya Toure, for example, right? So I think that we offer that sort of pathway. So yeah, I was quite surprised. And I don't know, the only way that I can kind of see Ben Davies working as a left back is if we kind of play a semi-back five with Ben Davies moving in to play that left-sided centre-back rather than playing as like a wing-back. A little bit how I think it was Mourinho used to deploy Ben Davies and Serge Aurier. Like Ben would tuck in to create the back three and Aurier would push on. So I'm interested to see what happens when Kulu comes back to training, because I feel like people have been throwing out there for like 2 seasons that Kulu would make a very good like attacking wing back. So I wonder if you had, you know, in some games, if you had Ben Davies playing as like the left-sided centre back and Kulu almost playing as like the left wing / like left wing back, whether that would be something. But other than that, I'm not really sure why he's sticking around. As I said, I think that he's, you know, got a lot of wisdom to impart, but he's been doing that for like 6 years, I feel now, you know. So it probably was time to see him go. It's quite concerning that, and you know, this is me saying that, you know, I've never got a bad word to say about Ben, and I will never have a bad word, but it is concerning that you know, we're looking at it with Destiny turning into be, you know, the next Ryan Sessegnon, you know, all the talent in the world, but seemingly can't stay fit. Jed Spence, who I get the argument of, he seems to be a better left back than right back. I do wonder if that's a beautiful dog, but I do wonder if maybe the right back thing with Jed Spence was like more of an Ange system, what the right back was being asked to do, whereas what the left back was being asked to do towards like the end of his tenure. So I would be interested to see him play as a right back in the Frank system, but he seems pretty enamored with Porro. So I don't know, going into a season with a sort of semi-fit Destiny and a kind of out of position Jed Spence and a past it Ben Davies, that doesn't really fill me with a great amount of confidence, especially when you look at the potential of like playing a Barcelona in the Champions League and having Ben Davies up against Lamine Yamal. You know,
well, I mean? even also, what happens if, I mean, Porro is able to play like 4,000 minutes and clearly takes care of himself really well. But let's say he even picks up some sort of injury, which is very possible, right? All of a sudden, then Jed Spence gets pushed out to right back, and then Ben Davies supposedly is the left back to fill in there. Some people are saying, calm your horses. Van de Ven can play out there. Well, if Van de Ven has played out there, then he could then technically pick up an injury. Then you have only Danzo or Dragic. To me, it's just,
It's Tottenham,
once
man.
again, yeah, go ahead, Rain Man. You're seeing where my frustration is coming from in this. Like, I am baffled by hearing that Ben Davies somehow has a future as a left back. I mean, Brian Mbumo, like, roasted him when Thomas Frank was still manager at Brentford. I remember Brian Mbumo scored like a hat trick or like a brace against him only a few years back. I'm surprised Thomas Frank is saying this.
I mean, it's our biggest problem is you've got players like Takai, played, God knows how much in Japan, comes to Tottenham injured. Solomon plays the whole season with Leeds.
Yeah.
Is being lauded by Leeds, as the missing piece in their Premier League, in their upcoming Premier League season. Injured. Udogie, in Italy, he was bulletproof. Comes to Tottenham. He hasn't actually been that injured, but still injured.
Richarlison.
It's I remember last week. Richarlison, not a bad.
Solanke was indestructible apparently before he came to Spurs.
There we go. I was listening last week, and I couldn't agree with Soren more. We need to get witch doctors, environmental experts, pitch surface experts. We need to get all these people down to Hotspur Way to work out what the heck it is about players stepping into our training ground and making them like glass.
Yeah.
Because it's just too consistent. It really is. It's what is it? Sherlock Holmes said, if you take away everything that's not possible, the only thing that's left is what it is what the thing is, and it's just too consistent. So it's a real concern. And whilst I'm concerned that we've sent Donnelly on loan, and I saw him as a very good 500 to 1,000 minute backup for our number 10s, we've got no backup at fullback.
Yeah.
No, Dragusin, I don't know. Could Danzo, but we're doing the classic Spurs thing. We're going to take a player from here, and we're going to move them over there.
Exactly. That's I know Dave would absolutely agree with that point. That's something he's always raved about, is why are we always making someone play a different position that has never, we're always like making them morph and squeeze into something that really isn't the position that suits them best, when we can just go out and fill somebody in that position. I like, having Jed Spence as like the premier competition for both Udogie as well as Pedro Porro. I think that's a great position to be in. It just feels baffling that, Ben Davies is being seen as a potential, third or fourth choice fullback. I just think his days out there have been long, long gone. That guy, I've seen him get beaten for pace by Andre Ayew or whatever, is Jordan Ayew, of like Leicester City, at times. The guy I just think is done at this level when it comes to playing in that position. Edward MV Joker Davis saying the legend Ben Davies will carry us over to victory versus PSG. Big up Jack on the panel. 16 months and we are still chugging. I don't think we will see wingbacks under Frank. We might, but I doubt it. Thank you, man. Thank you, Eddie, for all the very, very generous support, sir. On to Ben Davies, to you, Soren. I mean, are you in my camp where you're just astounded that, Thomas Frank doesn't see a need to sign a left back when we have the amazing Ben Davies, or are you confident that Ben Davies can actually fill in the role? Is it a masterstroke, or will it come back to haunt us?
No, I love Ben Davies. Again, I think it's a sentimental one. And look, you get to my age, and these players you just keep them at the club for the likes of it. I think again, he's a bit like Sonny. He's been a real professional for us, and yeah, he's not the most talented one. But look, we go, and I know we're going back in time before anybody tells me, but under Jose, under Conte, he was the one putting all the blocks in, putting his, jumping in front of shots and things like this, and people didn't see, they just overlooked that. But I just think Ben Davies. Look, he's not a long-term replacement, and I think we all know that. But to fill in on an odd game, if that's what's needed, then I think it's fine. And I just
Even at
think that,
fullback, when you still think he can do a
well,
job there?
fullback, yeah. I mean, even centre back, because I think under Frank it's going to be a hell of a lot different. He's not going to need to run as much to get back, because I think we'll play a lot deeper line. I think. It'll be a lot more of a blocking type defender. If we play a 3, then I don't see a problem with it. But I don't see him being, if we do get the injuries and he's got to step in for 6, 7, 8 matches, I think we're in trouble. That's the problem. But to come in as a sub or to fill in against, in the early rounds to give players a rest, I have no problem with Ben Davies. And I just think he's here again for one more season and then going straight into the coach. He's here to bring these younger players on. And that's all it is. He's just a familiar face in the ground. But going
Do you
on
agree
to
with this
the
statement from Sean saying maybe it was just a statement by Frank because he's been told there isn't another fullback coming, so then you just kind of have to gloss up Ben Davis and act like he's, the best left back of all time, sort of thing?
well, then, I mean,
We've
if
seen it
that's
done
the
with Eric
case,
Dyer,
well, if that's the
Antonio
case,
Conte.
then I hope to see a lot of the Spurs fans that were telling us how Ange was a yes man and so-and-so's a yes man.
Yeah.
They better start having a go at Frank as well, because them same people out there are all lauding Frank as being his own man and he get what he wants and blah, blah, blah. Well, if he's a yes man, then, I want to see them same people telling us how much of a yes man he is. Well, I don't believe that to a point. I think if it's a case of he's been told that we ain't getting anybody else, then why are we suddenly looking at another centre back now? If that is the case, I just think that they're probably being a little bit loyal to him, a bit like they've done with Sonny, and I'm pretty sure Frank would have turned around and said, "No, I don't want him." If he's not the player, if he doesn't think he can get something out of him, I would hope Frank would be the sort of manager that would turn around and say, "Look, Daniel, he's no use to me. He's you're going to be paying a man to sit on a bench, and I'm not going to use him." So to me, if Frank's coming out and saying that, then I think it's two things. I think it's a bit of respect, and I think it's a case of he'll have told Ben Davies that, look, you ain't going to play much. You will get some minutes. You'll be third choice, fourth choice, whatever you are. And if Ben Davies is happy with that, and as a backup player, then that's fine with me. And look, I mean, like's been said already, with our injury list, you kind of need whoever you can get in there. We're not going to get many top centre backs that want to come and maybe get 3, 4, 5 matches a season. That they all want to play, and again, that's maybe another reason they're not coming. But I mean, one of the rumours was that Ange had put one of his T-shirts or something under the training ground, so all our players are still getting injured. So we can, obviously, we can still blame Ange for it all. I mean, I have seen somebody trying to blame him, but it shows that all the crap we heard last season about it all been down to Ange. It was just what it was. It was a load of bollocks. There is something fundamentally wrong with something within our club.
We've changed coaches. We've changed medical teams.
Yeah,
we've changed insole provider. We've changed everything that you possibly can.
There's only a couple of things we haven't changed: the pitch and the training ground pitches. there is something not right within the system. I mean, Tottenham's always had a lot of injuries. It's nothing new. It's not just the new stadium. But there is something more than just the medical team. It's not just the training, because, again, we've gone to a different training system now, and we're still picking up injuries. There is something fundamentally wrong somewhere. Now, whether we go back to the building of the stadium and, you know, people joking about there's an Arsenal shirt buried under the stadium or what, maybe it's that floor that we was talking about from the old stadium. Maybe there's ghosts from the old stadium. I don't know. But there is something not right with something within our club for these injuries. And
maybe we just
I
need to
just-
interrogate, you know, the people that actually built it, you know, re-interview them and find out, you know, their allegiances.
Well-
Maybe they did cast some sort of spell. But to your yes man point, I agree with you that that's always one of the things that annoys me, that people try to pin on managers for being a yes man, because
Yeah.
nowadays in football, you do have to play your cards cleverly, where if you know a player for whatever reason, maybe sometimes it's pushed by the director of football or the owner, or the player just wants to stay and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't just be like, oh, I don't want him, because he's not going to play for you then, right? You know, you can't just sort of cast him out, because then you're not saving yourself in any way. You know, you're only kind of making your chances of getting, let's say, a good performance out of him when you might need to rely on him at some point. You're costing that possibility. So sometimes managers do just have to glow up a player and, you know, say this and that about them, even though they might not actually mean it, because it's in their best interest in case they have to rely on them at some point. I think the same was said about Eric Dyer from Antonio Conte, right? Someone that's stuck around for a very long time, Eric Dyer. Antonio Conte said, oh, he has the potential of becoming a world-class center back or something to that, right? But I don't think Antonio Conte is someone who's managed actual world-class center backs and Chiellini, etc. I don't think he actually believes that. I think he was just saying that because he knew Eric Dyer wasn't necessarily going anywhere, and he wasn't going to get, because his Antonio Conte's big money center back signing was Clement Longley. So I don't think he had any interest to try to throw him out the door or anything.
Yeah, but John,
maybe Ben Davies is the new Ryan Mason. He just comes with the furniture.
Yeah, but Conte shouldn't be getting any credit here, because he's the one that decided he wasn't going to play Jed Spence because it was a club signing, and then look at Spence now.
Yeah.
You know, he's, like somebody said earlier, fantastic game against Arsenal. Some of the games last season under Angie was brilliant. There's obviously something with Spence's attitude, but as a footballer, he's fantastic. Well,
my point is more like he keeping a player, right? Like sometimes a manager just says stuff because they know that they're sticking around.
The thing is, you've got to look. I mean, I can't say about football because I'm not a football manager, but in the profession I am, if I go and slay one of my team off, the rest of the team are affected by it. So you learn not, you know, you maybe don't like the person, you maybe don't think he's good enough, but you don't come out in public and slate a player off, or a person in your team, or whatever you want to call it. Now, right, Frank might not think that Ben Davies is good enough, but I also bet he looks at Ben Davies and thinks, do you know what? You've got a little bit of knowledge about the game of football. You know what's going to happen. You may not be the best footballer in the pitch, but in certain circumstances, you know to keep a calm head. You know to do this. You know to do that. You know how to bring these younger defenders on. That there will be merits to Ben Davies's game that Frank will have looked at and thought, do you know what? It's not the worst decision in the world to keep somebody like Ben Davies in this squad. The downside to it is he takes up a position that maybe a better player could take, but a better player may not bring the knowledge and the attributes that Ben Davies brings. So I think there's a little bit of everything. We've got a very young squad, and to have one or two players of the likes of Ben Davies in that squad is not the worst thing in the world.
I think Ben Davies, he's always been very content, though, with not playing. It seems like he's actually a guy that just likes to pick up that 80 grand a week paycheck and doesn't seem to care about playing all the time compared to other players. That could also be part of it for why he sticks around, because it's just easy to keep him around. You were going to come in, though, Sam?
Yeah, I was going to say, can I ask a transfer-related question linking to the topic of the show? if they came out and said that we
No,
put in like a
Can I just come in
25,
on the Davies thing very quickly?
yeah,
Very quickly before we move on. I think it is important that we have players like this who are retained at our club, right? You know, I go back to the Fergie years. He always used to retain a few. He was ruthless, but he always used to retain some old players who kept the culture of the club going. And on Frank being a yes man, what's he supposed to say? You know,
Yeah.
what exactly is he supposed to say? And I remember Conte, you know, bemoaning the Premier League sort of culture of journalists coming to a presser and asking the manager as though the manager knew everything that was going on at the club. He would say, and he said, you know, in Italy, the director of football would be here and he would answer questions, and you know that's a problem that we have, and I don't know why we haven't solved it. I guess Lange is not going to be in pressers answering these questions, but ultimately Frank needs to get stuff fixed on the pitch, and the transfer team needs to get stuff fixed in getting players in, and Frank shouldn't have to deal with the whole thing. That's not the way that it works in a modern way. Sorry, Sam. I just wanted to get that out.
No, yeah.
No, it's all right. It's kind of my question's still kind of linked onto it. So I do also want to give my Ben Davies eulogy at some point. But my question was going to be, if we went and offered like a 25-30 million to Man City for a player like Ake, you know, a player who can play centre back, which fills that void, but also can fill in at left back if needed. Is that something that you'd be interested in? I know that Ake's 30, he's going to be 31 in February. I looked it up earlier. So maybe it's not the best profile of player, but that stuff.
Nope.
It's not us.
Let's see. Yeah. Let's
Not
see
the
if he
best
comes
way
back.
to freeze,
Maybe.
is it?
I mean,
Yeah, just when you wanted to ask a good question as well.
But similar to Grealish, why not? Why not go to Man City and say, you know, even if we say we'll take him on loan for a year, yeah, to get him off your books for a year, and I think Grealish as well. I'm not a massive Grealish fan, but right here, right now, a Grealish loan seems like it would fix our problem, Grealish's problem, and Man City's problem. It feels like win-win-win.
Yeah.
So, you know, this seems like an eminently reasonable. Sorry, Sam, I'm filled in whilst you're. But Ake sounds like, you know, a left field fantastic solution.
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't mind Grealish as this alternative number 10 or even kind of left winger, because he would kind of technically be able to play on the left wing and be a guy with a lot of experience to some degree, but then also could fill in for where James Maddison plays or where Kulusevski plays. I think you actually do fill a lot of holes with that signing. And if we're going to, you know, bring up what we said earlier about what is it? You know, Johan Lange not getting the deals done in time. At a certain point, you just become desperate enough, and that can happen. I don't mind your suggestion, Sam. That I think what you were saying is sign kind of a left back / center back, someone who can technically play both. You know, I actually don't mind that. I think that'd be pretty clever, because we are looking to sign someone who would be playing essentially, you know, as this third or fourth choice, you know, kind of backup to already the mainstays of Udogie and Pedro Porro. So I actually don't mind that shout. Just let's take this one, Sam. No, Jacob Anderson, member for 42 months as an elite member. It's very, very generous, Jacob, and also part of the 40-month club of absolute soldiers of sticking along this long with us, sir. I think they plan on using Gray as a fullback. Still, Spurs do need a 10, a 9, a left wing, and a left back, but I just don't see them signing a left back this window. I think it will be a 10 next and then a left winger. Big up, guys. Sam, do you think that's what's going to happen? Just no left back, but perhaps, you know, the number 10 and maybe another forward of some kind will be signed?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm not going to mince my words here, so, you know, sue me, right? But I think that is a terrible idea. I think that, you know, I've said it before. I think that Archie Gray was nowhere near the level that people sort of made him out to be last season. And I know there's reasons, and that's not that. This isn't me saying, "Oh, I don't think Archie Gray will be a good player." I do. I think he's shown us very few glimpses, but glimpses where I've thought, "Oh, actually, this guy has got something." But pretty much every time he played fullback last season, we got overrun down his side, and we had to either change the system or move him out of the fullback to the other side. So I don't want to see him there again. I think that just because he can play there, as you said that Dave is always saying, just because they can play there doesn't mean that he should. And we're in a transfer window for a reason, right? To go out and get things that you need. So I'd prefer to go out and sign, another fullback or another defender who can play fullback, rather than going and saying, "Oh yeah, Archie Gray can cover that if we need him to." It's like, yes, if we need him to, then by all means do it, but don't use that as like the crutch to not go out and sign anyone else because Archie Gray's in the background.
You were shaking your head, Soren. You seem to disagree.
I disagree more. I think
You agree with Jacob, but disagree with Sam.
I mean, no. Going on with the Gray thing, that I think that analysis was absolutely more wrong if he tried. There was as much coming down Poro's side and as more mistakes and crosses coming in from Poro's side as what there was from Gray's. I think it was the system that let both Poro and Gray down in the fullback positions, because there was nothing in front of them to give them any help, because everybody's bombing on and they're left with just too much to do. Now, look, I'm not saying is a fullback or a wing back or whatever. I'm not saying he is that type of player, but I think for an 18-year-old kid coming into the Premiership for his first time, who was supposedly a midfielder, coming in as a left back or a right back or a centre back in that system, I think he did bloody well. I think all this criticism he came in for last season, I think it was absolutely disgraceful. And look, I'm not saying he wasn't to blame for some things. I'm not saying he didn't do things wrong, but there was absolutely no help for either of our fullbacks under that system. And I think if you look at him under a Frank system, I think he would be totally different. He'd have a little bit more help. He'd have that number 6 probably now. He'd have the defense, and let's look at it. He was playing. He wasn't always playing with our best centre backs neither. We was playing a totally makeshift back five. The goalie, the two centre backs, and the two left and right. It was just an absolute shambles of a defense last season. And I don't think you can put all the blame like that onto Archie Gray, because to me, he did very well in his basically his first season in a Premiership team where there was absolutely no help and no cover for him.
I mean, the goal that we saw consistently last season, it was driving me nuts. I saw it so many times in the stadium. Eze scored it. Kudus scored this goal against us. Ball from midfield, cut behind our fullbacks, and it to be honest, it was usually the left fullback that it went behind. Player gets on it, like Bowen got on it, cut it across. Somebody comes in, taps it in from the penalty area, from the penalty spot. We saw that goal so many times.
Where was the rest of the defence now?
It was a system problem.
Yeah.
That was not being addressed. We were constantly being exposed, and I got to say, Sam, I think Davies was thrown in too young. I think I don't think he was ready, but he was definitely exposed out there on the right hand side last season, and I'd be worried that he would be next season. But Frank seems to be getting things sorted.
Defensively.
Yeah, look, I mean, I take your point about the system and about Poro, but the difference between the two is that well, one of the differences between the two is that we can sort of give Porro a bit of grace because we know he is a good defender or a decent defender. But with Gray, my main problem is he couldn't get up and down the pitch, and a fundamental part is getting up and down the pitch. It's not to say that he's not fit enough to do that job, but it happens so often. And yes, it happened with Porro, but Porro was basically playing striker for like 90% of last season. But Gray would get up the pitch, we'd lose it from a sloppy pass from somewhere else, and he'd just be nowhere near getting up. And he's not the quickest. It's not that he's slow, but he's not got that engine to motor back like a Van de Ven, like a Spence, like a Destiny. And I just think that his defending was all right. And I do take your point about the fact that it was a makeshift back five, because that's actually a point that I often make about Dragusin. Although I do use Gray as the example, that Dragusin was being asked to be the older, experienced centre-back in a system that he'd only played for, 3/4 of a season sporadically, and was also 22 or 23 himself with no experience around it in a new league. So I do look. I'm not. I can see comments. People are like, "Oh, people are going in on Gray too early." I think that he was getting too much grace because ultimately, as harsh as it is, football's a cutthroat business, right? And if you're going to play Archie, if he's good enough to play in that position, he's good enough to be criticised, I think. And I don't, I'm not out here slagging him off saying that he's not going to be good, because as I said, there was great moments for him. Like, I think it was the Galatasaray game, he played that unbelievable ball over the top to Brennan or whoever it was. And he did have some very tidy moments, like in tight spaces. The one that comes to mind is against West Ham when he did like Bowen and then did sort of little step, like shuffle. Like he's clearly got talent. I just don't want to see, as we've mentioned before, another player who is being wasted in a position that isn't their number one position. But like Ben Davies, I feel like Archie Gray will just do whatever he's told. He'll play wherever he's needed by the manager, and I respect that. But I think that we should want for more in terms of not having a weaker option at defense or fullback cover, but also wanting Gray to be able to reach his full potential by playing in the position that we've been told is his position and where Frank wanted to sign him for Brentford.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the games under Frank so far, he hasn't been tempted to put him in that defence. He's put him in that kind of number 6 role. And when you've got a manager that already wanted that player and then comes in and puts him in the position he's supposed to be playing in. I mean, if you look at Archie Gray, like you just spot on there what you've just said, his passing, his vision, he can run with the ball. But like you say, he hasn't necessarily got the legs to get up and down, up and down, up and down the pitch. That's why his preferred position is at number 6. He's there to be sit just in front of the defence, just behind the sort of creative players, spray those long. I mean, he has got a phenomenal pass. Some of those passes he did last season were absolutely phenomenal. Some of the runs and the dribbles he did were brilliant. But he's a young kid. Let's not forget that. He's obviously 19 now, but he's the type of player that you've just brought in a monster number 6 who we can now learn off. He can learn off somebody. We didn't have that last season. We didn't have that person for him to come in and learn off. Now, I agree with you in the sense of when he's played either left back and right back, he has made mistakes. He doesn't get up the pitch. But one thing I do disagree with you a little bit on your last statement was when we say Porro's a better defender, so we can give him a little bit of grace on it. Well, shouldn't that actually mean we should be criticising him more for the same mistakes he was making as what Gray was? Because he should know better. Yes, he's up and down the pitch and his work rate last season. But again, if you go back to his first season under us, he was a better player, was Porro. Last season, I'm not going to say he was terrible because he wasn't terrible, but he made so many mistakes and so many problems for the rest of the team. But again, that was the system he played. That was what he was being asked to do. Same as Gray. he's been asked to do something that isn't natural for him to do. And I mean, look, we look at last season under Ange, and there is a reason we finished 17th. It wasn't because of, individual people not being good enough. It was because the system didn't work within the Premiership. Now, I'm not going to slag Ange off because he won as a European trophy. He did something that Conte couldn't do, that Jose might have done but didn't do. All these managers, they didn't do what he did. But we finished 17th for a reason. And, they're players playing in positions they shouldn't have been playing in.
To be fair to Jacob and what he actually wrote, and I'm just reading it again, I think what he's saying is this is their plan. I'm not sure he's saying that it's a good plan.
Yeah, that's fair.
And actually, I agree with him. I reckon it probably is that they probably are looking at, they've now got Paulinho, who's going to play 6. There's a certain degree of flexibility, much as Dave and I absolutely hate players being shoehorned into different positions. You've got to have some degree of flexibility. There's always going to need to be some balance. You just hope it isn't too permanent. And I agree with Jacob. I think it's a pretty good analysis. This probably is their plan.
It's like Van de Ven plays there. You can move Gray to right back if need be. Jet Spence is, of course, an option. Technically, Ben Davies is an option. It's just maybe they just shift things around a little bit instead of actually just signing.
I wouldn't be surprised more if, rather than Gray playing left back or right back, I wouldn't be surprised more if we see him as a centre back.
No. Jason Bell saying, I agree with the bigger problem was the system. We were constantly wide open on the flanks.
We won't see that this season. We will not see that where our left back and right back are totally left open.
No. I think that's the one thing we already can tell is that he's definitely shored things up defensively. It's very, very solid so far. Belgian Hotspur, good to see you. Scotty Heinem, good to see you. Jason Bell, appreciate you. Stefan Blois, good to see you in the house. Trinidad saying, big up Jack and all. 10 years ago, a little team of nobodies called Leicester, after nearly being relegated the season before, won a Prem title. So anything is possible with the Europa bounce. Who knows? Fazzy Radfar saying, injury crisis still there. Why? Medical team. I mean, this was Rainman and Soren were really on this point of just at some point, what's left? What is the real reason? Because it's amazing that Thomas Frank has inherited this problem, because we were told it was all Ange's fault.
The only thing left, actually, it must be down to Daniel Levy. It's got to be Levy. So Levy out. Come on, let's start that one again.
Add that to the list.
That's the only thing left. If it's not the stadium, it's not the training pitch, it's not the bus that they travel on, it's not the chef, it's not the medical team, it's not the manager. It's got to be Daniel Levy. He's working them too hard.
They need a new Levy out chant anyway, so maybe we add something on about the injuries, might actually make it a bit more interesting and, just get a little nice tune, because, we're kind of using a lot of the same songs. We need a new one. Moondog, member for 44 months. Big up to you, sir. Hope you're all well, he says. And thanks for being a member for as long as 40 months. Absolutely crazy amount of generosity, and for sticking with us through thick and thin, through the roller coasters of Tottenham Hotspur. Appreciate you, Moondog. And thank you for the support as well. Faz, believe me, man, I have no answers on the injuries. And that's just why I also brought up, this Ben Davies thing, because I think it's perhaps maybe Jacob is right that they're just going to shift things around, move players in different positions. I can understand that, but it did seem a bit bold, considering, the injury issues that we've had. What happens, if Porro, gets injured or something like that. It seems like we have a pretty thin squad in certain areas, and I am a little bit worried about fullback. And I remember it even took us years to sign someone like a Destiny Udogie when we've been crying out for someone like that for a long time. We just persisted with Reguilon as well as Ryan Sessegnon and Ben Davies, all three of which were just not good enough, it felt like, to some degree. But it took us forever to sign a Udogie. It just seems like Spurs are just allergic to, having all the covers and all the bases covered when it comes to fullback by the looks of things. But I think we are going to wrap up the show here with some of the members' questions here, and then we'll get on out of here. Really do appreciate all the support from everybody today, and also thank you to these guys for filling in, especially while Dave is out at the minute. Jason Bell saying, I think we might be difficult to score against, but I worry we'll not be able to find the back of the net. Any chance we'll bring in someone who can provide creativity. People have been banding about Grealish, Rain Man. I think you were kind of nodding your head to that, even though you're not even a Grealish fan. Are you sharing a little bit of worries that Jason Bells is saying that will continue to maybe struggle to score, but defensively will be solid?
I mean, I think I honestly think that our biggest problem last year was our ability to finish.
I agree.
Apart from Johnson doing his tap dance, his tap in impressions. And we've got Solanke's bulletproof Solanke is injured. We've got Richie. How long before Richie is injured? We've got we're very soon going to have no strikers, no forwards. Yeah, I think it's a real concern. And I think somebody said, oh yeah, it was Jacob. We need a 10-9 and a left wing. Yeah, we absolutely do. And it comes back to me again. Why are we sending Donnelly out on loan? Why are we sending Lancashire out on loan? For me, it's time. It's time that they get 500 to 1,000 minutes. If they're not ready for the Premier League, then we sell them. We can't just endlessly loan players until we find out that they're not ready for the Premier League. At some point, they've got to be given some kind of time to prove whether they're capable or not. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, actually. I mean, I agree with the creativity point. I'm a bit worried with Madison now being out and Kulusevski being out. Will we be consistently creative in games? I am a bit worried about that. But I agree with Rain Man. I felt like actually a bigger problem that some people maybe didn't list, higher up as one of the problems. Plenty of people were right. Defensively, we were wide open in games. But my bigger issue with last season was it did feel like there were plenty of times when we created enough chances to win the game. We just were not a clinical team whatsoever. We would be in 3-on-1 situations, 2-on-1 situations, and the ball would go out for a throw-in for some reason. It would be that poor. You just didn't understand how they weren't that clinical. And you watch other teams play, they take like these half chances, quarter chances, and are absolutely ruthless with it, where I would not say that Spurs were a ruthless team last season. And we've only added Mohamed Kudus to the forward line. I don't think he's going to solve everything. And we also are, even though I know people felt like maybe he was falling off the pace a little bit, but we also are losing Sonny, who's probably, with Harry Kane, the best finisher I've ever seen at Tottenham Hotspur for a long time. So I wonder if that problem will still persist. What Rain Man was saying about the finishing issues. Iceman saying seems like we were getting a lot of players to go out on loan, but replacing them with no one. I thought we needed depth to fight on all four fronts. I probably should have given that one to you, Rain Man, because I know that's something that you definitely agree with. But Sam or Soren, do you want to come in on that? Do you agree with maybe that frustration that we're getting rid of a lot of players on loan, but by the looks of things, not replacing them? Either of you, if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the other things that just suddenly popped up with one of the players that's going out on loan. I mean, Vuskovic, great defender. Well, we could have used him up front as well.
Yeah.
One game he scores a goal and assists. Great with his head, can kick a ball into the back of the net. So you kind of think we've got a striker there. But look, one thing I will say on the sort of front line, I don't think we're going to concede as many to have to score as many. I think we'll be okay this season. I really do. And that's not saying we don't need a striker. I think the biggest hole in our team is that creative player. We need somebody in that midfield. We've got our defensive monster if he plays well. We need that player that can see something, that can create something. We haven't had that type of player for a long time. Maddison, in those first 10 games, he was the one that looked like he was going to be the guy. We need that Modric. We need that Eriksen type player. And that, to me, we get somebody who can sit in that midfield and play virtually most of the games we need him to. I think that's the biggest thing we need this season, is that monster number 10, and the rest of it will fall into place. We'll score goals, we'll defend better, the system will be better. And look, if we don't concede, we only have to score 1 to win. Full stop.
And
Yeah.
I don't want us to become a Sean Dyche type like side, Soren, but
Oh,
but 5 to 10 goals from set pieces wouldn't go amiss either. And
no,
it seems like Frank is, trying to address that.
yeah, but we sit here and look, I'm the same as you. I mean, under Conte, I hated the football. But at the end of the season, if we've won a trophy and say we come second or third in the Premiership, we won't give a shit how we've played all season. We'll moan every single game. There used to be that chant 1-0 to the Arsenal. I tell you what, if we're singing 1-0 to the Tottenham at the end of the season and we're right up there and we've won a trophy and we've gone on in the Champions League, we will not be sitting here and saying, yeah, we've finished second, but we've won the FA Cup. But Jesus, how shit was the football? We won't be saying that. We'll be all sat here lauding it if we're in the Champions League final next season because we've won every game 1-0. We won't give a shit how we've played. That's the difference. And I agree with you. I don't want to see boring football. I love the entertaining football. And, you don't know whether you're going to come out of it 4-0 or 4-0 losers or 4-0 winners. I love that part of the football. The problem was last season, we was on the losing side every match. But I don't know. I just think we need a season where we're stable. We're hard to beat. We've got to get that back into us where teams don't come to us and think they're going to put 3, 4, 5 past us.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing that we've got to change. We've got to be hard to beat at home, and when we go away, they know they're in for a game. Full stop.
I prefer to be that way. I mean, each their own, right? It's matter of preference. It's matter of opinion, but I do prefer to be more defensively solid than be just some attack-minded, creative side, free-flowing football. I hate conceding goals personally. I think it's something that in my opinion, just yields more results, in my opinion, if you are that team, like you're saying, that's hard to beat, hard to break down, difficult to create lots of chances against or create high quality chances against. And then you just take 1 or 2 opportunities that come your way in the game, because they usually do. Sometimes, you can just be that team that just relies on a few moments in a game that present itself. And then if you're clinical enough and you take them, you can be a very, very difficult team to beat. As much as Nuno's team, Nottingham Forest, were awful to watch last season, that's what they relied on, was just being defensively one of the most solid teams in the Premier League. And then they just took advantage of a few counterattacks or set pieces here and there, and they nearly finished 4th in the league.
Well, I mean, the perfect example, we scored 1 goal in the European final and won it.
Yeah, exactly.
We didn't concede. We were under the cosh a lot. We scored 1 goal and we won it. None of us are sat here saying it was a shit game or it was boring to watch. All we know is we lifted the trophy at the end of it. Full stop.
Yeah, exactly right. Thank you to Holden. Love your last name, Mycock, I would assume. Actually, oh my God, I just fell for it. I absolutely just fell for it. I was thinking it was like some German name. Oh my God, absolute red face moment there. Jeez, I feel stupid. Appreciate it though. Thank you for the support. Saying first show, big up, come on, you first. Honestly, that might be the first time I've ever fallen for one of those. Years later, that might be the first time. Clip that, I guess. Clip that. Jesus, absolutely embarrassing. Happens to everyone. It's going to happen to me at some point. Appreciate the support. Thank you for watching the show. Please, everybody, do smash a like, and feel free to catch me slipping again, like Holden did here, if you feel like it. Artist T saying it's crazy how Sesko is getting hyped up. You can tell people don't watch German football. He's not that good. I'm so glad we aren't even linked to him. What's funny about Sesko is he is going for crazy money. I don't think he's actually worth that much money, Artist T, but I know this might be a bit harsh on the guy because he's decently young to an extent, but I do think a guy that plays for a team like the Slovenia national team, I think you can really measure how good a player is when they are supposed to be the best player in their team and whether they can actually carry that team or not. You saw it with Georgia, right? Where people know I've been rating that Kavicha guy for years, even when we were linked with him when he was playing in Russia. I said that this guy really looks to be top level. But part of the reason I said that is because that Georgia national team, there weren't many other good players in that team apart from him, and he carried them, through many a games against good opponents and was able to get really good results and just put the team on his back and just sort of would do everything for that side. And I remember Sesko for the Slovenia team. He was kind of shit, when I watched him for the Slovenian national team. Of course, I watch a bit of Bundesliga like yourself. He's looked all right for RB Leipzig, but I don't think he's anything that some people have labeled him as. I think at one point they were saying he's the new Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I think the only reason they're saying that is because he's tall, lanky, and has a good touch for a big man every now and again. But I would agree with you. I do think he's a bit overhyped. My frustration, though, is seeing Manchester United revamp their whole forward line, signing him and Mbumo, and as well as Mateus Cunha, where we're taking months just to sign, because it looked like we wanted someone like Morgan Gibbs-White. It's taken us months just to sign one of those kinds of players, like Soren is saying, someone that can really open up the opposition, that creative player that can open teams up. We're taking months just to sign that one guy, whereas Manchester United, a team that didn't even win the Europa League and aren't even going to be playing any European football of any kind, somehow still were able to revamp their whole forward line. I don't get it, personally. Q7, it's kind of maybe a similar point to the not getting the attackers, into the team. He's saying, hello, lads. Are you worried looking at the players we currently have that we have gone from a team that scored goals to the system to now a team that only looks good defensively? I'm really concerned about the lack of quality in attack, as there's only so much Kudus can even do. If we don't get two attackers, and I mean players that can start, I feel we are, I assume it probably, maybe I'll zoom out or something, I feel we are in trouble. Sam, what do you think, man? I mean, have we gone from being a defense, or have we gone from an attack-minded team that's weak defensively to being a strong defensive team that can't score? Do you share that worry?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think one of the biggest criticisms that I had of Ange was his need to prioritize the attacking fullbacks over the wingers. So, pushing a player like Heung-min Son, who's never been a touchline winger for us, has always been kind of like a second striker, pushing him out to the wing and expecting him to deliver the kind of numbers that he had been delivering, for multiple seasons before that. I just think that ultimately the tweak of actually having the fullbacks be fullbacks and the wingers be attackers, I think will be a massive change for us. And obviously, I know Maddison's unfit at the moment, but a lot of the time last season, I found myself seeing Maddison fill in at left back rather than being in the position, in the hole between the midfield and the defense of the opposition, looking for that killer ball. He was always having to create from deep, and I felt like that just didn't help us in an attacking sense. So I'm hoping that with some more traditional, styles of patterns of play, that in general we will just be better. Do I think we need to sign more players? 100%. But I think that ultimately the saying is you can't lose a football game if you don't concede, right? So I am a fan of defense. I'm not a fan of just defending, but I can gush over the art of defending. But yeah, I think ultimately I'm pretty happy with how I think Frank will line us up. Obviously, it remains to be seen, but for now, I think I'm pretty happy.
Do you agree with, and you can come in on this, Sam, or Rainman can come in, or Soren, do you agree with, someone made a comment, I'm just trying to find it after everyone laughing at, of course, me falling for that joke from earlier. But someone put in a comment, which I kind of agree with, that Spurs defensively, when you look at a lot of the people we do have to pick from for the defense, that's where the most quality is. But the further you go up, when you actually look at the forward line, that's where there seems to be the biggest, gap in quality.
I mean, to come back to Sam's point, we've effectively. I'm not confident that we're going to sign another left winger. I think we'll go all out. I think the best we'll do is we'll go all out for a 10, because clearly, or an 8 to 10, because clearly that's where we were. We had Morgan Gibbs-White lined up. So I'm not sure that we'll be going out for a left winger. But what we've done is we've replaced Sonny, who even though was played out of position last season, and people say, well, how does that 10 yards make a difference? It makes a hell of a lot of difference. Makes such a massive amount of difference. Sonny still produced numbers. And we've replaced him with Tell, who it was only a pre-season game, but couldn't finish a one-on-one chance against Pope. And that is a concern.
Now, I think even Matisse Tell had question marks about his ability to finish in that Newcastle game. That didn't necessarily go away with that one-on-one that you had. Artist T, thanks for getting me. To be honest, I think it might have been the first time ever. Usually I'm quite good at that, despite even having a bit of a lazy eye whenever I'm reading. Somehow I haven't been gotten yet. So finally someone did, and I'm glad it was you. I actually was reading it almost as like Maybach, which is like, I think like a German beer or something like that. And I was thinking it was like just some German sort of name. So I absolutely got done. But we are wrapping up the show here. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you, Artist T, as well. Thanks to everybody sharing their absolute crazy milestones. Thanks to the members for sending us these questions to finish off with at the end of the show. Thanks to Soren, Rain Man, doing a great job, I believe, on his first panel show with us. Would love to have him back. And Sam, of course, for being an absolute regular. And Sam, I think you are going to leave us with some parting words for Sonny. The only reason I haven't done a full video length on this is just because I'm just waiting for Dave to get back, because I think it would be right for Dave and I to sort of do that together, and give our, goodbye and farewells to Sonny. But Sam, I think you wanted to finish off with that.
Yeah, well, of course. I felt if I didn't say anything now, I probably wouldn't get another chance to like speak about it while it was relevant. So I appreciate you giving me the chance to read what I'd written about him. Okay. I don't know if there's a certain age at which you stop idolizing footballers and making them your heroes. You can still love players, sure, but I feel like nothing compares to the love and admiration you feel for a set of players from your childhood. I was about 15 or so when Son joined Spurs. That peak Pochettino team was just beginning to take shape, and we get the Ornstein bomb that we're turning our interest away from Berahino towards a young South Korean forward called Heung-min Son. Little did we know where we'd be 10 years later. That attack of Kane, Son, Dele, and Eriksen, absolutely legendary. They delivered us so many memories, even without the trophies. As seasons came and went, gradually all the heroes from my past came and went, each getting progressively harder to stomach as they left. And I couldn't imagine anything would be harder than the news of Kane to Bayern, but I was wrong. Waking up this morning to see the news that Son was leaving was probably the worst thing I could wake up to. I've laughed with him, cried with him, and most importantly, smiled. Heung-min Son, it's been an absolute pleasure to watch you for the past 10 years and to grow with you. Watching you lift that trophy with my dad and my brothers, you delivered me the greatest moment of my life so far, as crazy as it seems to publicize that. I still believe you have more to give us, but I respect the decision to leave, and sadly, I can understand it. You came a boy, you left a hero. Sonny, I love you. You're the fucking man. Come on, you Spurs.
Beautiful, man. I put out in a short video, I mean, maybe we can let everybody give their little thoughts on it. I did put out a short video where I did say I was, I became a Spurs fan through Gareth Bale, Luka Modric, but, as a Spurs fan at that time, you kind of knew that those amazing, legendary players always were going to maybe chase trophies and, the bigger clubs of the world. But what does make Sonny special is that he probably had plenty of opportunities to join a Bayern Munich, to join maybe a massive club, but then just waited out for that one trophy instead of just, going to another club to win 5, 10 trophies, and I think that always will, hold a special place in my heart, because loyalty nowadays, it's like it's criticized. It seems like loyalty nowadays. Like I remember how much Harry Kane was criticized for staying at Spurs for as long as he did. And to maybe to a degree, people were kind of saying the same thing of Son, but it's a special thing to have someone as loyal as he was. Soren, I think you had some words for Sonny in the beginning. I can go back to you again on it, but Rain Man, if any special words for Sonny, if you have any.
I think that was really lovely. I lost a lot of my sentimentality in 2001 when my heart got broken by a certain player moving down the road. However, at the weekend, obviously with all of the cameras panning to Sonny, I couldn't help but feel emotional because I started going to I started going to Spurs in the 90s, but I got a season ticket as one of the Wembley intake. And that period of time, Wembley was an awful stadium, but what a period of time that was for us as Spurs fans. And in my customs seat, which is where I sit now, which is on the right hand side behind the goal, Sonny coming down that left wing, curling. For me, his iconic. He will always be iconic for that shuffle, shift onto the right foot, and then curl it into the top right hand corner. And I saw so many of those goals. And yeah, so the weekend I felt myself getting slightly emotional, and I really didn't think I would. So
no, I mean, absolutely. I think he, no matter what, even if you have been broken to some degree, I think he was someone that he was also kind of unhated. I think he's probably regarded as maybe one of the most liked footballers, even across just the game in general. Even Arsenal fans seem to even like him. But Soren, any final words for the man?
Yeah. Well, I've supported Tottenham since beginning of the 80s, and I've seen some great players play for Tottenham. Hoddles, Ardiles, Perryman, Mabbott, Gareth Bale, Modric, Ericsson, Kane. The one thing I will say about Sonny, he came a boy and he left a legend. And there's one clip from that final game where he's looking at, I think it's the young girl, and he says, "Are you crying again?" And I tell you what, I think he spoke to every single Tottenham player at that moment when he said, "Are you crying again?" Because look, a 54-year-old man at this end, I had tears in my eyes, and he is probably the hardest player to say goodbye to that I've had to say goodbye to as a Tottenham player. And I don't care whether he wasn't as good as he has been for the last few years. He will always be Sonny. He will always be a Tottenham player, and he will always be, as much as I've criticised him, he will always be my captain. And he has left an absolute hero. And that picture of him lifting the cup, I am glad it was Sonny who lifted the cup and not anybody else that was in that team or that has played for that team recently. I absolutely love that bloke, and I hope no matter what he does for the rest of his life, I hope he is successful, because he is the perfect footballer. He is the perfect man. He is an absolute legend. Full stop.
I think the one other thing that I'd like to say is I am expecting there to be a drop off of South Koreans coming to our stadium, and I for one am going to miss them.
Yeah.
I see so many coming and sitting near us. When I put my ticket up for sale, it quite often gets bought up. I've spoken to so many of them. Absolutely, and they've been absolutely delightful. They're enthusiastic, polite, interesting, funny, more so than a lot of other fans who I see have who come, don't come to every game. I'm going to absolutely miss my Korean visitors to around my seat. So if any of them are listening, watching or listening, I'd like to say thank you to you, because you made my time better at the stadium.
Oh, very nicely.
I mean,
very nicely said.
One last quick word I will say is, you've got a man in Sonny who is not just loved by a team's football fans. He is loved by a whole nation. He is an absolute hero to that nation. And how many England players could you name that are held in the same regard as he is? None. He is an absolute superstar. He is so rounded, and he look. If we had a team of 11 players like him, we'd win everything.
Yeah.
You know,
And-
there will never ever be another Sonny.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too is that he's just an icon even of that continent. You know, he's like practically the most famous athlete, if not to come from that continent in a long, long time. Actually, he's like a LeBron James or something, where he's just so recognizable for so many people who don't even necessarily follow the sport. I know plenty of Americans who happen to know who Son is for whatever reason, and they don't even happen to watch, the game. That does speak to, of course, the impact that he's had. And then also he's regarded as pretty much the nicest person, in the game as well. Just someone who had absolutely no haters. By the way, everybody, I did find Sam's, what he read from was a tweet that he had put out there. So do follow Sam on Twitter, Spurs Undercover. I'll put his link into the chat here as we're wrapping up. But thank you, everybody, for a wonderful show. We covered a lot, mostly about sort of just, whether we think we're going to be making some mistakes or whatnot, with the signings or lack thereof. But really do appreciate everybody for being here with us. Thanks for everybody sharing the milestones. Thanks for the support. Thanks for Artist T for making a mockery of my reading skills. And thanks to these guys for the panel tonight as well. I thought it was a very, very good show. So appreciate you all. We'll see you tomorrow for a fan show, and then Thursday for a watch along against the Bayern Munich. It's actually a bit of a shame that maybe Sonny didn't even get to play against Harry Kane one last time. But of course, at some point it felt like going to happen, the more that those rumors just kept going on and going on about LAFC. We'll see you next time, everybody. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.